which cultural figure first comes to mind when you think of 60s glamour? The swinging 60s, the defining culture of that somewhat mythical decade of the 60s. And as far as I'm concerned, Julie Christie was the epitome of 60s glamour. And she really was. I mean, if you look at the four films included here, her finest work, without question. And also varied. She made so many different films in the 60s, from social drama to costume period pieces like Thomas Hardy adaptations. So we may not share the same image in our consciousness of this starlet, depending on the films we have seen. We may remember her differently. Of course, she first burst onto the scene in, I believe it was 1963. She played Liz, William Fisher's sort of dream girl, as it were. Here she is with Danny Boone, the television comedian. And this is the first time I remember seeing Julie Christie on screen in Billy Liar. And you come to the conclusion that she must be a kind of a work of fiction, an imaginary figure sort of concocted by Billy, who is so frustrated by all of the kind of the insufferable, unbearable people in his reality and the mundane life that he lives. Of course, the Julie Christie character is everything he wants to be. She is a product of the time, a free thinker, she travels, she isn't tied down by a dead-end job, unlike Billy, who works at the Undertaker's. She doesn't have nagging parents, kind of criticising her all the time. Billy, on the other hand, is constantly being reminded of how privileged he is, how lucky he is that he went to grammar school. Wilfred Pickles badgering his son constantly, how lucky he was that he passed the 11 plus and he was given a scholarship. And Billy wishes he could spread his wings, but he's too frightened. So he daydreams instead. A real Walter Mitty. But Julie Christie is the complete opposite, of course, in that film. And then Julie Christie found herself starring alongside two very established stars, working again for the director John Schlesinger in Darling, here with Dirk Bogarde. And these two established leading men, Bogarde and Lawrence Harvey, take a back seat for this, so that this rising starlet can take the limelight, as it were. Christie plays the darling, of course, an aspiring model who sort of desperately craves fame and recognition. She doesn't really know why. She wants to be on the covers of magazines, and of course marries into Italian royalty. And Bogarde is sort of the first love of her life, really. She at the start of the film, she's married to this bore, this young man who is, in her words, immature. And Bogarde comes along, Bogart, stylish, intellectual, a TV reporter, and they fall in love. But will it really endure this passion? And it doesn't. He leaves everything, his wife and children. He leaves his happy domesticity to live with this darling, and she gets bored of him very quickly. Moves on to the next man, Lawrence Harvey, of course, who almost plays a kind of an extension of the character Joe Lampton from Room at the Top. There's a very dramatic scene where Julie Christie holds a big bash in her flat, and she's separated from Bogart, and she tries to get in touch, but he won't speak to her for a long time, and it's a terrible turn of events. He arrives at the flat during this bash, and he wants to talk, but sees that there are all these vultures at the flat, at the party, and he leaves. Julie Christie throws everyone out, of course, but Lawrence Harvey won't leave. Says, and he refuses to go, and Julie Christie, she seems to see behind his eyes, and there's some kind of trauma there or pain, and she observes, are you afraid that I might commit suicide? Has this happened before to you? And that's a strange line, if you think of the Joe Lampton character who was in the relationship with the older woman who commits suicide, of course, and you kind of think, is this character inspired by Joe Lampton, a businessman, somewhat of a kind of rogue, a rebellious kind of womanizer? Could this be the same character, or inspired by the John Brain creation, the angry young man? Just a thought. But this is where all of this film, Darling, is an accumulation of all the great 60s icons. You have John Schlesinger, one of the great filmmakers, at the helm. Julie Christie is the starlet at the centre of attention, and Bogart, who almost he was a very established star throughout the 50s as a matinee idol, but he really became a serious actor in the 60s, and this is when he started to make his most memorable, his most important films, and here he is, no longer top of the bill, no longer the centre of attention, but nevertheless he is still very much relevant at this point, at this time, in the mid-60s. And of course, Julie Christie would go on to star in a few period dramas. The most lavish production was probably Dr. Zhivago, but the two included here are Far From the Madding Crowd, where she plays Bathsheba Everdeen, the kind of fierce, independent farmer who is given her dead uncle's farm, and she's a very unconventional figure in the 19th century in Wessex. She is a woman in charge of a farm, very unusual, and she sort of attracts the attention of all men, really, unwanted attention and affection from the likes of Farmer Boldwood, who becomes kind of besotted and obsessed with Bathsheba Everdeen. And she finds herself in a love triangle in a strange way. Boldwood loves her, but she doesn't really love him at all. She falls for Sergeant Troy, but he doesn't really love her. He only really loves himself. And then sort of watching from the kind of helpless bystander, as it were, is Alan Bates as Gabriel Oak, who has always loved Bathsheba, but respects her wishes when she says no thank you and turns down his proposal. She only goes back to him at the very end when Boldwood shoots Troy and then is sent to the guillotine, and then she falls back, as it were, or says, well, you're the only one left, essentially, to Gabriel Oak, so if you still want to marry me, then this time I'll accept. And it seems to me, a very shallow finale, conclusion of the story. Speaking of Alan Bates, or Anal Beast, as Stephen Fry called him, which is an anagram, apparently, the two of them were reunited on more than one occasion, actually, but most notably, they starred together in the Joseph Losey adaptation of The Go-Between. The Go-Between, the story of the kind of relationship that was frowned upon by society in the 19th century. Her character Marion, very wealthy, almost aristocratic character, and Ted Burgess, the farmer, played by Alan Bates, and the two of them fall madly in love with each other. But of course the union is forbidden by a sort of unwritten law, societal law, as it were. She, an aristocratic kind of lady, surely cannot be seen to, or cannot marry a farmer. A kind of this sort of uneducated ruffian, as it were, played by the wonderful Alan Bates. So instead, there's Leo, the young messenger boy, is their go-between, and he takes letters from Marion to Ted Burgess, because he is besotted with Marion. He has quite an affection for Marion, his good friend's elder sister. So he'll do anything for her, for Julie Christie. So he sends messages, letters, to and from, based on the L.P. Hartley novel. And this is the kind of story that would attract a director like Joseph Losey, of course, who was attracted to stories that dealt with society, the class structure in England. Of course, a film like The Servant is perhaps his defining film. And then a writer like Harold Pinter, who wrote the screenplay, as I say, based on L.P. Hartley's novel, he also was attracted to that kind of thing. Of course, they had previously collaborated on The Servant. Julie Christie is the epitome of 60s glamour, and it's very hard to disagree with that statement. Is there anyone else who was so who was not only so glamorous, but was also embodied or personified the culture of that decade, certainly in Britain. So there you have it, folks. This has been a fantastic time. I have enjoyed every moment of this discussion to you. I mean, I don't know how many of you will see this, but I certainly hope that as I have spoken to the camera, you have nodded along and understood the kind of the gist of what I've been trying to say or to communicate to all of you at home, my loyal audience who religiously watch my ramblings and my videos, as it were.